Hey guys, it's me, MarioMan73, also known as Sick Newbie, back at his YouTube channel. Today we're gonna be remaking Balatro in Roblox. This will be in episode 2, which is a follow-up to my episode 1, which none of you watched, but that's okay. This one will actually have some editing and be longer than a minute long, so that'll be pretty cool. Now, first of all, we need to kind of figure out what the hell Balatro is, right? And so Balatro is a game released by Local Thunk where you have to play poker hands to earn chips and then meet a certain chip requirement. While that would be pretty boring on its own, the game comes included with 150 unique jokers which modify what you do in terms of how you play and what happens to the cards you play, resulting in a very interesting, very unique, very replayable roguelike card game. Not only that, but you can buy different consumables in the shop in between rounds, which will greatly change the game, including adding enhancements to your cards and things like that. This is obviously a very big project, but I think I can do it if I try, and it'll be an interesting way to sort of improve my skills as a developer and make something cool. Despite only owning the game for about a week, I've already put about 35 hours into it, and so I would say this is sort of a love letter to the game in of itself as well, since it's something that I'm definitely addicted to. With that being said, I'm now going to try and make the game in Roblox. I've been working in Roblox Studio for a few years now, so I won't have to spend time learning the ropes of the engine, and I could just focus on the game entirely. Interestingly enough, Balatro is coded using Lua, the same programming language Roblox uses, which is a neat detail. Starting with the basics, I've created a system that will make 52 different cards, each with their own suit, rank, and chip value, so a standard deck. I also added support for hands to be played. It is automated, but that is kind of just for testing purposes, and I'll allow the user themselves to input their own hands in the future, obviously. When you play cards, the game will look at the 5 you played, or up to 5 you played, and figure out what the best possible poker hand is, along with what cards are part of that poker hand. For example, if you play 5 clubs, with 2 of those cards being kings, it'll still score your hand as a flush rather than a pair because a flush is worth more points. You're also allowed to play cards that aren't going to be scored. For example, if you play 2 kings and a 4, the game will only score the 2 kings, and the 4 is basically just discarded. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the UI of the game right now, as it's mostly non-functional and serves as a placeholder. The visuals are also temporary because, yeah, they're pretty awful at the moment. I also began adding different card enhancements, mostly just to test different parts of the gameplay mechanics. Wild cards, for example, count as any suit, and so they can form flushes with cards that don't match their original suit. Mult cards add 4 to the multiplier for that poker hand. Basic but effective, and they introduced the mechanic of adding molt, which is something the other cards haven't done yet. Steel cards, on the other hand, are a little more tricky, as they multiply the multiplier by 1.5 when triggered. That's already a new mechanic, but they introduce a second mechanic that's more complicated, that being hand scoring. Steel cards only activate while in your hand. They don't do anything special if they're actually played, so you're encouraged to keep them in your hand. This means that we have to check cards within our hand whenever we calculate score, adding more complexity to the game. Lastly, for now, we have stone cards. Stone cards don't have a suit or rank, and are always scored when played. This means that if you were to play a 2-pair, you could add in a stone card and it'll be scored for more chips. Because stone cards don't have a suit or a rank, they can't be part of poker hands, like pairs, flushes, straights, etc. When thrown all together, it starts to look a little bit more like Balatro. However, it's missing a very core piece of the game, and that's sort of what I plan on implementing next. We need something to spice things up, allow cards to be enhanced in the first place. We need something that can make the game crazy, a feature with over 100 different unique elements. We need jokers. But first, I think it's time I start to make the game more playable, rather than a glorified tech demo. So, I started working on the interactive UI. I started by adding very basic placeholder code which would start the game and ensure that everything is loaded properly. I then made it so that the server will notify the player every time it creates a card, so that the player can have their own connections to it. All of this is being done under a main remote event, which will keep things simple. Using this event, I made the player set up a button on cards so that they can be selected and added to a table, including all of their selected cards. I added some other placeholder code so that when the player is done selecting their cards, they can hit a different button, and that will tell the server to go and score their hand. More specifically, it'll tell the server to score their hand using the cards that the player has selected. As you can see, after a bit of testing, I was able to properly load into the game. I then hit start and selected a few cards in my hand. After selecting my cards, I hit the start button a second time, and my hand was scored by the server. It fucking worked, oh my god. I then spent a considerable amount of time coding in various UI elements so that they'd actually represent values. I also threw out the placeholder code and started adding basic functionality for playing around. While I don't have discards coded yet, I can at least play more than one hand now, which is a big improvement. I can't believe it worked. But what if I just put like more than 5 cards though? As you could see, I clearly still have lots of work to do. I think that marks the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is sort of my first time actually editing something together using like proper software and a decent computer. I hope that as I continue this series, I can kind of improve my video editing skills at least a little bit. Make sure to like and subscribe or whatever if you want. Apologies if my voice sounds a little bit off. I am sick currently. And yeah, I guess I will see you in the next video.